All right, I think we're going live on the YouTube side, and now we're recording. Let me go ahead and get the live fired up on the Facebook side. Here we go. Tap to add a description. Here we go. All right, I think we're going live on get rid of that the YouTube side, and now we're recording. Let me go ahead and get the live fired up on the Facebook side. There we go. Okay, cool. All right, hang on a second, Charlie. I'll be right with you.
Okay, Coach Jeff. Morning.
Tip number 32. Go. All right. So let's see if we're rolling live. All right. Yeah, we're going live. I see the ticker counting on Facebook. Hello, everyone. And we're recording on Zoom. And we're streaming. I don't have the headphones plugged in, so I don't have to mess with it later on. And we're streaming on YouTube, and we're going live on Zoom. I want to thank Charlie, the global connector, for joining me live right away. 8:02 p.m. I'm like a minute or two late here. I got Brody home from a birthday party. It was a swim party. He had the best time. Oh my God, he's in the pool all day long. It's amazing how those kids do that. Here we are, though, for another installment of Get a Clue in 52. As you all know by now, Get a Clue in 52 is 52 tips, one for each week of the year, spread out in 5 categories. And one of those, marketing, which we already covered this year, has 2 extra tips. So I'd have a full 52, right? So 10 tips per category, and except for marketing, which has 2 extra tips. And this is the second edition of the book, the second edition. It says so up top right there, second edition, because I did the first edition. Done is better than perfect. We found a bunch of things that were eligible to be improved, and we improved a lot of them. And I'm even finding mistakes in this book or things that I'd like to do differently for the third edition. So don't ever be afraid to put something out there. Let the marketplace tell you, or let reality tell you, right, what's good. Or, if you're waiting for it to be perfect, you'll never put it out there. Get it out there. Let the marketplace decide. Say, thank you, marketplace, and then make the improvement and put the improvement out there. It's been a wonderful ride for me, and I hope that you guys are enjoying what we're doing. In terms of reading a tip every single week, we did it all year last year, but this year we've rearranged the tips and cleaned some things up. So we're doing it again, 52 consecutive weeks. Last year I was streaming live into the Facebook group, Get a Clue in 52. This year, streaming live into YouTube. So by the time 2 years is over, I'm gonna have 104 videos of me reading tips with a little bit of live interaction on the back end for most of the tips. I mean, I think maybe twice in all of last year and this year through July into the second week of August here. I think maybe twice I was just reading the tip by myself and then moving on. Otherwise, I've been joined every single week by at least one person. Hats off to you, Charlie, for really being one of those really consistent, loyal people that are coming on board, making sure that I have somebody to interact with after I read the tip. It's not necessary. It's just wonderful. Does that make sense? It's not necessary, but it is wonderful. That smells like a Kluby snack right there. All right, so let me go ahead and review. And what's happening tonight is the last tip in the networking section. So it's a special night, and it's the 10th tip in the networking section. And networking section starts on page 65. And let me review the first 9 tips without too much elaboration. All right, tip number 1 is develop an elevator pitch. Okay, tip number 2 is to repeat number 1. And so I really want you to know, what are the ingredients in an elevator pitch? And if you have more than one of each type of ingredient, you have more than one pitch. If you have more than one promise, if you have more than one problem you solve, if you have more than one competitive advantage, if you have more than one market segment that you serve, then you should have more than one elevator pitch. So tip number 1, develop a pitch. Tip number 2, repeat tip number 1 for all of the promises you make, all of the segments of the market that you serve. Tip number 3, learn and master active listening skills. The typo we found, it says marketing skills. What we mean is listening skills. And the number 1 path to improve your listening is to create great questions, which is a tip later on in this section that I'll get to in a second. Tip number 4, look for synergy when you do one thing that serves more than one purpose. One thing that serves more than one purpose. Just today, I took my son, Brody, to his friend Matthew's birthday party. but that it served more than one purpose. I got to see Matthew's dad and hang out with Matthew's dad while my son had fun and I had fun. More than one purpose increases the chances that we'll be unstoppable about it. So look for all of the things you can achieve with one endeavor. If you're going to one event, what's everything else you can do on the way to, during, after that event? Can you get more than one thing done with one thing? Tip number 5, look for leverage. Leverage is bringing tools into the situation, bringing tools to bear on a situation that would give you more power to move things than you would have without the tools. So what does that mean in a networking situation? Tip number 6 is positioning as power. We were focused briefly. I mean, it's a great tip for conversation. We focus on both the physical positioning, where you sit in the room, but also verbal positioning, which ties back or runs a string through the pearls of all the other tips, right? Do you have your elevator pitches? Are you aware of all your promises? When it's time for you to talk to this person versus, are you going to say the same thing to the organizer of the event that you're going to say to the VIP guest speaker? Are you going to say the same thing to the VIP speaker that you're going to say to the gatekeeper who's registering you? If you're saying the same thing to everybody, that might work. But in my experience, we want to do what we can to learn who people are. So that way, what comes out of our mouth is catered to, customized by who we're talking to, and what's the synergy, what's the opportunity for all involved, etc. Tip number 7, one of my favorite tips in the whole book: master these 7 reversible questions. Reversible meaning, have you ever put on a piece of clothing where you put it on this way and it's one color, put it on the other way, it's another color, fits the same way both ways? Oh, isn't that fun? 2 for 1. I'm an efficiency guy. I love reversible clothing. Well, there's 7 questions that I talk about in tip number 7 that what I mean by reversible is master learning how to ask them and what your answers will be if those questions are asked of you. It's the epicenter of marketing communication. I digress. Tip number 8, follow up and follow through. You can follow up without following through, but you can't follow through without following up. Gloomy Snack. Charlie, did I see you nodding right there? Right? We love that. A lot of people follow up, right? But sometimes it takes 2, 6, 12, 20 touch points before somebody finally gets into your sphere of an opportunity, whatever it may be. Maybe you're reaching out to somebody because you think that they're going to hire you. And then the more you learn about them through your outreach, what you really learn is that you need to hire them. And so be it, because if you hire somebody with great insight and they do the great job for you, that's a hire well done, right? So I like lawyering. Would I ever represent myself in a legal case? No. If I find a lawyer that I believe in, that's money well spent. I digress. So 8, follow up, follow through. It's really, really, really important. You never know how many touch points it takes before some opportunity emerges, whether it's an opportunity for you to make money or for you to invest in yourself. What's networking all about? And by the way, it's not a tip that's written in here. Maybe it'll show up in the 3rd edition of the book. Maybe I'll put an 11th tip in the networking section and take one away from the marketing section. But as it dawns on me as I'm reviewing these tips, I haven't said it as clearly as I want to say it now. Sometimes you go out networking to find the help that you need. Right? Most people think of going out to networking as looking for clients, trying to drum up business, trying to make it rain, trying to develop relationships, trying to get, right? But, you're missing the boat. There's tons of people out in the world that actually can help you. And it's a great thing to tell yourself before you go out into a networking environment. If you tell yourself, I can't wait to learn who can help me out there. I can't wait to learn who out there I can help. If you have both of those questions in your mind, you've got reticular activation, law of attraction working for you. And if you need to hire the graphic designer, if you need to hire the SEO specialist, if you need to hire the real estate agent, the financial advisor, the insurance agent, the horse trainer, the personal fitness trainer, the nutritionist, they're out there. They're out there. And there's, so it's a good idea to really look within and say, what do I need? What's missing in my life? What can I keep my eyes open for? Most people go into networking thinking they're going to go out, build relationships, and make money. I promise you, if you go out looking to invest in yourself, looking for the people out there that you want to trust to make investments in yourself through, your networking experience is going to be a lot more fruitful. That's an argument. I don't have proof of it other than my own stories, my own experience, and the people that I've invested in helped me get to where I am. But having both perspectives, I think, is going to increase your prosperity when it comes to networking. Tip number 9 is introduce yourself to the VIPs. Everybody, what's the Klu stack we made out of this? Everybody's important if you take the time to learn their importance. Everybody's important if you take the time to learn their importance. So everybody's a very important person, from the gatekeeper that's registering you, to the VIP speaker that's on stage, to the organizer of the event, to sponsors that have table space and positioning at that event, to the attendees, to the members, to the non-members, to the guests. Everybody's important if you take the time to learn their importance. And if you understand all of your promises, all of your advantages, you've got something for everybody. And so you're going to have a different listening for everybody. We've all been at networking events where people feel entitled somehow to push their way past everybody else right to the front to get access to somebody that they didn't earn in any other way other than being an ass. We've all been there, I think. And the idea is to be open and curious and respectful to everybody, and they become very important. You never know who's going to open the door for you. Charlie, you've been wonderful about making that point in previous sessions. Thank you for that. And that brings us to tonight, tip number 10. Tip 70, page 77, tip number 10 is, in one word, love. That's right. Love, I think, is just like the ultimate lubrication, if you will. Like, love makes everything easier. Being loving makes things easier. It reduces friction. It can get you unstuck. It can, it's just, it's the willingness to be vulnerable, though, right? Love is the willingness to be vulnerable. I'm sure I'm going to mention that as I read the tip word for word. And it's this vulnerability piece. A Klu snack, Charlie, if you want to go ahead and write it down right now. Vulnerable is not the same thing as threatened. Vulnerable is not the same thing as threatened. So a lot of the times people are assuming they're going to get attacked. And so they're using that as the reason not to become vulnerable, not to put themselves out there, not to take a chance, not to brave the feedback or the pushback or anybody's disinterest. I mean, right now I'm vulnerable, right, Charlie? Right? If nobody shows up, nobody pays attention. If nobody clicks, nobody likes, right? I'm vulnerable, right? But I'm willing to do it. Anyway, let me go ahead and really quickly say hello to Miranda. I see that you are on the Facebook Live side, and go ahead and comment. If you want to come into the Zoom side, it's tinyurl.com/getaklu, GETAKLU. We're doing Get a Klu in 52. I just reviewed the 9 tips. I had a fun time doing it. It's 8:14 p.m. I'm all the way up on the verge of reading word for word tip number 10. And I just see that word love. And I think, oh my God, is everybody ready to go there? Let's brace ourselves, right? And it's very simple. Love is the willingness to be vulnerable. It's a form of courage. It's a recognition that I could get hurt, but for what's on the other side, I'm going to go anyway, right? I might get burned, but I'll walk across the coals because of what's on the other side. That accomplishment, that togetherness, that all the things that love brings, right? And it's not just like intercourse or physical love or not even romantic love, but I've got friends that I love. I've got endeavors that I love. There's activities that I love. Playing golf with people that are better than me, that I'm vulnerable. I'm like, oh, I'm up there ready to swing and I feel everybody watching me and I feel that vulnerability. Like, what if people laugh at me, or what if I'm not good enough, or what if people go, oh my God, I'm not golfing with this guy again, but I go anyway. So it shows up in all kinds of forms. A lot of times people want to stay in their comfort zone, and networking is about getting out of your comfort zone and creating relationships with others. So here we go. Let's do the word for word part and see what kind of discussion emerges. Charlie, are you ready? Word for word. Get a Klu in 52. Tip number 10 in networking. Tip number 32 overall. Here we go. This rule is arguably number 1 instead of number 10. If you love what you do and or fall in love with what you do, ... or love people, or love helping people, or love learning, or love diversity, or love, it will show on you. You will have instant, raw, pure, and magnetic credibility when you love what you are doing, love what you do, love what others do, love helping others do what they love connecting people that might end up loving each other. Love being a person who loves. You get it? I refer to M. Scott Peck, author of The Road Less Traveled, for my definition of love. Quote, the willingness to be vulnerable so that either you or your beloved may grow. I'll read it again. The willingness to be vulnerable so that either you or your beloved may grow. Make no mistake that we are vulnerable when we are networking, and it is our willingness to be vulnerable that gives us our power to network. Charlie, Kluby snack, did you hear me? Did you hear it? It almost vibrates, right off the page. And it is our willingness to be vulnerable that gives us our power to network. There it is. Okay, and let me close out by saying our power and willingness to grow and help others grow. That's what networking is. It's our power and our willingness to grow and help others go by creating relationships that are mutually beneficial. And when that happens, there's a ripple effect. It's not just the two people that meet, but everybody else they serve benefits from the power that they create. I digress. There it is. Tip number 10, the final tip in the networking section. Next week, we are going to move on to the sales section, and then we'll finish with accountability. So 10 tips in sales, and then we'll round out the year, close out the year with 10 tips, 2.5 weeks of accountability. Charlie, you want to go ahead and open up your mic and ask a question, share a thought, offer an anecdote? Is there anything that you have to contribute tonight, my friend?
Thank you, Coach Jeff, and good evening, and everybody else out there and who's going to be watching the replay. Yeah, it's really understanding what the meaning of love really is and how does it tie in with your life and what other elements come along with it. The vulnerability part, definitely, and trust me, it's just being you. Are you open to just let everybody in, or do you set barriers? Are you rigid? Are you unapproachable? So in networking, that is one of the most important parts that makes you be attractable or get attracted to people with that aura that you bring to the room.
Yeah, I think you're commenting specifically on that piece that says it will show on you. The last five
Yes.
words of the first paragraph on 77.
Absolutely.
Right. If you fall in love with what you do, or you love helping people, or you love learning, or you love diversity, or you love love, like if you're vibrating in the love vibration, it will show on you, and you'll become magnetic. You'll be attracted.
Exactly.
Except for people that don't love themselves. In my experience, I'm going to go ahead and say this. In my experience, people that do not like themselves do not like me. That's my experience.
Absolutely.
If people have an insecurity about themselves, or they aren't willing to speak their mind, or they're, I don't know what, but in my experience, I've just experienced a lot of people that deep down, they don't like themselves. They don't like me. They think I'm going to see it. I'm going to detect it. They think that I'm, because my empathy and my communication skills, I've seen people that don't want to be around me because they're afraid of what I see. Right.
I got a question on that one, Coach Jeff.
Yeah.
Would it be, and you just pointed out that somebody who does not love themselves do not get to like you.
Well, I'm talking about me in particular. People that do not love themselves. I'm not saying they don't love anybody. They will gravitate to others that do not love themselves. Misery loves company.
Exactly where I was going to. Exactly where I was going is, it's like that same energy that you sense from somebody. Somebody could be right on the other end of the room, and just that energy that you're getting from that person, be it the unspoken word, just their body language, how they're carrying themselves, it just sends a signal to you. You haven't met them from a bar of soap, but there's just that, I don't want to speak to that person. It's what they exude, right? And my question would have been, would it be somebody that gets threatened because of this positive, high vibrating energy that you are bringing into it, that they feel? The Klu snack on vulnerability says, it's not the same thing as being threatened. Mm-hmm. But at some sense that I've gotten is they are intimidated. They are kind of intimidated by your presence, that they feel out of place. You would attract more than they would. And I think that is where the dislike comes, or the disconnect comes. Well, what are your thoughts?
You know, just to keep it on the jovial, right? It's fun for me when I see, like, go to a networking event and I'd see, well, there's 6 realtors here. You know? Yeah. Let's see how they all move about the room and how they all look at each other. Or there's 4 there's some usual suspects that, you know, networking is the way. Oh, and let me give a shout out real quick. It looks like my buddy Rob is watching. Peace to you, Rob. How are you? Let's get together. I'm obviously back in town. Can't wait to see you and catch up on how your and Kai's summer have been. Back to the point, Charlie, that we were talking about. You know, people get intimidated for different reasons. Sometimes people are just, they're introverts by nature, and they're just, the setting intimidates them. Sometimes they see other people in the same vertical that they're in, and they get intimidated. Like, I'm not the only coach here. I'm not the only speaker here. I'm not the only insurance guy here. I'm not the only architect here. I'm not the only, are you with me? Right?
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons, go back to elevator pitch. It's important to know your competitive advantages. See, like if I go and I see 6 other coaches, I don't get intimidated because I know what my competitive advantages are. And I'll tell somebody if I'm in a networking environment, I'm like, you know, there's 5 other coaches here. And if they know what their competitive advantages are, make sure you know what they are. If you're thinking about coaching, I'll tell you what mine are. But before I do, let me learn about you a little bit more. And then what are my competitive advantages, the ones that are going to meet them, right? If you string the pearls of the earlier tips. So my point is, people will get intimidated for different reasons, right? And not all of them are worthy of judgment, right? As a matter of fact, it's made, you know, I'd probably prefer to say none of them are worthy of judgment. Follow? It's not, none of these tips are about judging others. None of them. They're about just improving our own game and making sure we know what we're doing when we get out there. And, you know, so to me, tip number 10 could be tip number 1. Love.
If you love, just come up with,
you know, again, I almost want to read the tip again, right? If you love what you do, if you love meeting people, if you love helping others, if you love learning about other people, if you love learning about assets that may be valuable in your own life, if you learn, right? I mean, when I first started networking regularly, when I built Get A Klu, in 2007, 8, 9, I met all kinds of estate planning attorneys, right? But it wasn't until like 10 years later that I actually buckled down and invested in my own estate plan. But after a while, I over 10 years of experience of coaching them, networking with them. So, you know, I feel like I made a good decision when it came time to do that, right? My point is that, well, there's a lot of points here, right? Is go out networking, not just autobiographically, or from the perspective of what can I get. Sometimes what you get is going to be meeting the person that you need to invest in order to get where you really want to get, right? And so a lot of people go out there networking, and they're like, you know, commission breath and speed networking, and some of that you observe, some of that inability, inauthenticity to really learn about and take time to, you know, learn about somebody else. That's what I mainly notice at networking events. If you're really taking the time to learn about anybody, or are you just trying to tell everybody about you? And
you know,
the dynamics.
You just bring up now another thought on Mind the Gap is judging and observing.
Totally different.
Yeah, right. So yes, when you are just observing people, you then develop an opinion in yourself, would it be related, or can it be called that you are judging that person? Some people are even going to speak to them to really see that, did you actually observe or pay attention, or did you miss something? But some of them, it's just plain there. It's just plain there. Again, sometimes there are some things that a person doesn't have to say a word. It's just the energy that they bring, how they carry themselves. It's, again, as you said, I don't know if I'm making any sense here.
Well, what I hear,
but somehow your sixth sense is kind of telling you at the level of the level of vibration you are at, you're getting some kind of signal that this person is going to drain your energy, and you just kind of stay away. It's becomes autopilot type of thing.
Yeah, Charlie, let me jump in. We know that happens, but I'm not following you in terms of a question or how that relates to tonight's tip. Help me out there.
It's again, like, if you brought love, if you brought everything that was mentioned, love to learn, love to ask questions, love to meet new people, love to engage with people, love helping people, introducing them to each other. You're just having fun.
Yeah.
But then some people who do not have that energy, right?
They still have to network because it's part of their job, or it's, like their boss or their company or organization says you need to go network, and they don't love it and they don't want to do it. Right.
Again, the point here is, I found that is where people tend not to kind of like you, and then feel intimidated by your presence in the room, because it seems like you are just taking.
But that's, to me, Charlie, let me jump in. But like, my mind is thinking, here's what I'm saying in my head right now. I'm like, yeah, but so what? It's a so what.
That's what I said. So what? That's your problem. Like, if you can't deal with it.
If somebody doesn't like what I'm doing, so what? So now I have to say, so what to you bringing up that somebody may not like what I'm doing. Yeah. So what?
Exactly. So what?
What? Doesn't help us tonight either.
Yeah. So what I'm basically saying is, just be yourself. If you're a loving, caring person and you love yourself and you love helping people, who cares what the next guy thinks? Just
the other, there's a couple of quotes that come to mind, like, what other people think of you is none of your business. That's one. Another thing is, if you never tell a lie, then you never have to play dumb. That's a quote from the Chili Peppers in the song. But that's like their funk version of like a truth that's been passed down through time. Where there's an original quote, but in Chili Pepper form, that's if you never tell a lie, then you never have to play dumb. I'm sure Mark Twain or somebody else has a better version of that in its original form. But the point is like, authenticity.
That comes to me,
people, you can see it, you can read it in a networking event. So whatever it is that you're doing, do it as yourself is always a good piece of advice, because there's just less to maintain, less to uphold, less to backtrack, less tracks to cover, etc. If you're trying to be anybody
100%.
So tonight's tip in Get a Clue in 52 is number 10 in the networking section, and it's number 32 overall. It's the final tip in the networking section, and next week we will start the section on sales. And one of my mentors, Brian Tracy, used to ask trick questions when he would speak. He'd be like, how many of you are in sales? And then he'd be like, well, if anybody didn't raise their hand, you're lying. We're all in sales, right? How many of you own your own business? And nobody would raise their hand, or some people would raise their hand. You'd be like, no, you all are president of your own personal services corporation. Even if you only have one client, that refers to themselves as your employer, that's who you're selling your services to. It's an exchange of value. So we're going to have a lot to talk about when we talk about sales starting next week. But tonight we're closing out the networking section. My thanks to Charlie, the Global Business Connector, who's usually on board with me every Sunday night, and anybody like Miranda and Rob and anybody else in Facebook that's on the live side. checking it out. Get a Klu in 52. Let me go ahead and make last call for comments, questions, any feedback, any interjections, any jokes, anything at all about networking. Tonight's tip was love. Like, yeah, if you love what you do, if you love meeting people, if you love learning, if you love helping people, if you love connecting people, if you love, right? So I'm just really shining the light on the energy, the vibration of love, and the willingness to be vulnerable, and make it very clear. Networking is being vulnerable, going out and putting yourself out in the world and having to find out about people and having to explain yourself to people. There's some vulnerabilities there, but when we brave them, when we fall in love with those vulnerabilities, when we understand that vulnerable is not the same thing as threatened, we might have more confidence to go more often and do a better job when we're out there and be vibrating with that willingness to be vulnerable, which makes us approachable. All right, that's a review of what we've been working on tonight. Charlie, do you have anything else for us as we wrap up the 32nd tip overall, 10th tip in the networking section of Get a Klu in 52?
Coach Jeff, again, just thank you very much for being here. It's my Monday morning mind feed, having fun, chilling out, hanging out with you, and it's all about learning, and that's what I love to do. And what I'd like to leave here is just let love be what drives you. That's all. Just be loving, even if it is something that makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable. Again, it becomes one of your vulnerabilities. Just love. That's it. Just love.
Right on, Charlie. Well, thank you for all of that. Thank you for always being here. It's all the way from South Africa. It's Monday morning for you. I mean, I'm always grateful. There's an international audience, whatever. But you always put a smile on my face, and it's always better to interact with somebody than not. We're missing Miss Patty tonight and
Miss Patty, yeah,
other familiar faces, but just thanks to you, Charlie. I love you, brother, and thanks for coming.
Love you too, Coach Jeff.
Yes, you do, and I can't wait to see you next week. And if you need, and I owe you a little bit of feedback on what you texted me about earlier in the week. That's coming. I thought I came up with something. It sounds a little, actually, off the top of my head, it's like this. Are you ready? I'll give it to you now since we're together. Are you ready?
Okay.
This is if anybody wants to ask me about what I'm about to share with Charlie earlier, he's writing a blog on the power of questions, and he was asking me for a Klu snack that fits in with it. And I think what you're looking for is something like this, Charlie. Are you ready?
I got it.
Asking the question does not reveal our ignorance, but failing to ask will certainly.
Wow. I love it.
It loves you too. But is that spot on for the draft you sent me? Does that sum up what you were getting at?
Exactly.
Yeah, people are afraid to ask questions because they're afraid to be vulnerable. Like, oh, that's a stupid question. But as your dad taught you, there's no such thing as a stupid question except the one that goes unasked.
Yeah.
That's it, right? No such thing as a stupid question except the one that goes unasked. So now let me just Klu snack that and say, asking the question doesn't reveal our ignorance, but failing to ask certainly will, or certainly does. I mean, there's so many other ways you can phrase it, but we want to give people the courage to ask questions and stay curious. It's really important.
Yes, because asking the question,
100%,
I love it. I got it all that. Asking the question does not reveal our ignorance, but failing to ask certainly does.
Certainly does, certainly will.
Yes, does will.
But failing to ask will sooner or later. I mean, there's so many places you could go when you just put the main components of that snack together. Then you can put the chocolate chips in and the nuts or whatever else you want to put in. But the core,
only the chocolate chips.
Yeah, the core of the Klu snack is just ask away and stay curious. That's the core of the snack. All right.
Yeah.
Charlie, I love you. And is that a fair offering in return? Do you know that I read
100%.
I thought about what you sent me and now I'm feeding back to you?
No, definitely. Just by as you had texted me to said, Let me have a look at it, and maybe something new can come up. And this actually is a different Klubi snack to the one you gave on questions the last time. And I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Well, it loves you. It's mutual, man. You know,
Thank you.
love is the secret sauce of all Klubi snacks. I promise you that, my friend. All right.
I
Get a
know
Klu
that.
in 52 is going to be signing off and wrapping up for tonight. You got the first edition there. It warms my heart. Charlie,
Yeah,
you
it
ready?
only took it took like 6 months to get here.
Hey, man, whatever it takes, all the way around the world and got there. That's so cool. All right, ready to see the hug and a kiss, my friend. Here we go.
Yeah.
Mwah. All right. Love you, Charlie. Thank you, my friend. We'll see you next
Love you
week.
too. Love you too, Coach.